We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 160 of Diaries. Yeah, that was weird to say, not gonna lie. This is the first time I've had to do that, and it's still gonna take some time to getting used to, but I'm Kyle Carr, one of the co-hosts of Dear Diaries, and joining me as always is my good friend Riley Feldman. Riley, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Kyle. The Bucks aren't doing all that well, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. The weekend was spent just hanging out at home, doing not a whole hell of a lot. We had a fire on Friday with some friends over. It was 30 some odd degrees outside, so people didn't stay all that long, but I did the typical Midwest guy move of just sitting by myself in the backyard until like midnight, staring into the fire wistfully, thinking about the Milwaukee Bucks and what the season holds. So I'm doing good. Thanks.
There you go. And then joining us this week, no Adam. He's enjoying his retirement break for now, but we do have Jackson, one of our staff contributors. So Jackson, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's been a heck of a lot of stuff going on, at least for me. Almost a month ago, I nearly cut off part of my thumb, chopping up some lettuce. Thankfully, we're all good now. Everything healed well, no complications, all that kind of stuff. But then this past Tuesday, I had a wisdom tooth pulled.
Oh.
Thankfully, just had to be pulled, no surgery, all that kind of stuff. So overall, I'm doing well. I am much in the same frustration hole with the Bulls and the Bucks as you guys are, just because I hate the Bulls so much and I don't want to watch them anymore. But that's what Star Wars pinball and Legos are for. So overall, things are going pretty well.
Although say, when you have to have a team meeting after the first game of the season, is probably not a good sign.
Yeah. DeMar DeRozan, you are a Philadelphia 76er.
Jackson, are you squeamish? I mean, obviously cutting a deep cut on your thumb, nobody wants that, but are you the type that, like, if you see blood, you start feeling woozy? Because I did a pretty bad cut on the end of my thumb, and I immediately I was like, if I don't sit down right now, I'm going to pass out in the kitchen. Like, I'm that sort of.
No, because realistically, I had a lot of bloody noses growing up for a whole host of reasons. So blood was a fairly common occurrence. The one thing I really can't do is pain. I was very nauseous after, and just like that kind of thing, and that having that deep a cut. But yeah, no blood. I'm fine.
I don't like either. I can't do blood, and I don't like pain. I just try my best to avoid getting hurt, but eventually when you have children and they headbutt you and kick you and claw at you, and you just develop new aches. But that's okay. Because dealing with aches is just one of the things that happens. And one of the people that had dealt with aches is Khris Middleton, as he did play in the first game for the Milwaukee Bucks, who happily beat the Philadelphia 76ers 118-117. And then Khris Middleton sitting out tonight. We are recording this after the Atlanta Hawks game. Khris Middleton sat out tonight because of his back-to-back. He will play tomorrow against the Miami Heat, but the Bucks lost 110-127. So it was kind of a mixed bag of a week. But as Riley mentioned last week, we are changing the format a little bit, so we're not going to go through each game individually. We're going to kind of encompass what we learned from the previous week, and it's more of a takeaway from what we gathered from obviously these two games. So I'll let our guest host Jackson go first. Jackson, what did you learn from these previous two games?
There is a steep learning curve for both Giannis and Dame to play together. Not simply just in like the pick and roll stuff, but just I think realizing how good of a player they have next to them. Because obviously for Giannis, his best teammate, I think by far has been Khris Middleton over his career. And Khris Middleton's fine, fringe all-star player, but nothing close to caliber what Damian Lillard is. And on the flip side for Dame, the best player he's ever played with was LaMarcus Aldridge, but Dame wasn't even that good when he was playing with LaMarcus Aldridge. So it's a learning curve for them. Giannis looked awkward in some moments against the Sixers. I remember there's one play where he was guarded by Patrick Beverley, and Beverley got him to travel, which just should never happen at all. So they got to learn to play together, and then just Dame just got clamped. He had an awful second game against the Hawks, 2 of 12, 3 turnovers. Like, those games are going to happen here and there, but overall, I think just we're only 2 games in. A lot of learning is going to happen, even with preseason and training camp and all that kind of stuff.
I think the biggest takeaway is Jackson's spot on with that. There's a lot more learning that Giannis has to do than Damian Lillard has to do, because Damian Lillard understands what it means to play next to a really good big man. In LaMarcus Aldridge, or just even navigating a pick and roll, something traditional like that with the big man. Giannis has pretty much, not never, but he has played as a big man, not in a traditional sense, almost his entire career. He'll set the occasional pick and roll. There was occasionally like Khris or Drew, and we always were like, can they go back to that even more, because we think it'd be even more effective. But this is going to be a whole new way of playing for Giannis. The couple things I noticed, he's got to relearn screen setting. It seems it's a lot of slip screens. He doesn't really lean in. He doesn't do great positioning. He waits for a little bit of contact and then goes immediately, rather than really like trying to hammer a guy. Again, that's probably what he was taught to do over time, because that would be most effective. The other thing is navigating an open space and kind of always reading, what is Damian Lillard doing? What is Damian Lillard doing? Being ready for the ball in movement, and then having to make that quick read. And yes, he's had to do that a lot before, but if the pick and roll, if this pairing is going to go as well as we think it should, and I think there were positions, we continue to see positions where it does show flashes, so I'm not saying it's never going to happen, not by any stretch, but it's going to ask a lot more of Giannis doing a lot of dirty work, and it's not as fun as bringing the ball up the court and then making a read, usually incorrect, to be like, oh, I'll just rush into the paint and see how this goes, and it usually doesn't go all that well. That balance between the two of who gets the ball, how are we going to set these screens, how effective, like, do I really need to stand in there, all that. Work in progress, I agree. Unfortunately, I think it's going to take a long time, because with Giannis, as we've seen with a lot of things we complain about, it takes him a long time to add it to his game, or to improve, or to kind of really get it down. And like I said, he's never really been asked to play like that. Not really. He's been asked to be the traditional big man on defense, but not so much in an offensive capacity. So I don't blame him at all for needing time to get used to it, but he will need to get used to it, yes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest thing as well. It's just more. I mean, it happened in the Hawks game where Giannis is taking a 3-pointer early in the shot clock, and it's like, why are you doing that? Especially when Damian Lillard's on the court, you do not need to do that. You should not be doing that. If Damian Lillard wants to take an early shot clock open 3, fine. He gets that right. You do not, Giannis. Like, it's kind of just more of like, I think they are still trying to figure it out. They are still trying to get into that rhythm, just because, Giannis has never had a point guard that can do a pick and roll. Like if you think about it, his best one was maybe Michael Carter Williams. And I'm not even saying that like jokingly. I'm saying that like seriously. Like Michael Carter Williams or Kendall Marshall was probably the best point guard they've had to do a pick and roll.
And that was a very different Giannis at that time and place where he was in his career, what he was capable of doing at that point. It was a totally different guy too.
Yeah, totally different guy, different responsibilities as well. So it is going to be interesting in that aspect. So I don't know. I think it's nothing to panic about, but it's definitely one of those where it'll be something we'll have to monitor. But did you have anything else, Jackson, that you learned or wanted to highlight from this past week?
Comes to mind specifically, I think maybe the biggest thing is just how well Marjan has started out, at least defensively. I think he had some good spots tonight, and apparently I think he had some good spots against Tyrese Maxey on opening night. So shout out to him from actually seemingly to improve on defense and show that defensive potential. We'll see if it keeps up for 79 more games, but so far so good.
I will say it was surprising with the Sixers game that the key to Milwaukee going on that run in the second quarter was simply, let's put Marjan Beauchamp on Tyrese Maxey. Wasn't expecting that from game one. But again, we're going to get games. Marjan's going to do great things, and everyone's going to say he should be starting. And that was that game.
Yeah, and then also Adrian Griffin followed through this game. He threw on Trae Young in the first quarter, and then Trae promptly drew 3 fouls in the first quarter on Marjan. So I believe he got him for a 4th too later in the game. So there is a learning curve, but interesting that Griffin, one, made that call both against Maxey in the first game and against Young in the second one with Marjan. And then 2, Marjan got those 3 fouls, and Griffin just left him in there. Bud would, after the second foul, Marjan would ride pine the rest of the game. There's
but
no,
wouldn't even
Marjan
put him in.
No, yeah.
Wouldn't even give him that chance.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I think that's interesting too. And ultimately, the game was such a laugher that it didn't really matter. We could have kept him out there for quite a while, and it was no big deal. But that's part of the learning process, and something that I appreciated in Griffin was the fact that he took that risk just to see. Let's see if it works. It worked against Tyrese Maxey. Let's see if it'll work against Trae Young. It didn't, not super well, and we had to pull him off the assignment eventually. But why not try? It's a long season.
Yeah, that's fair. Riley, what did you learn from the week?
I don't know how healthy Khris Middleton is. Everybody says that he's healthy. I believe people that he is healthy. But they're really going to slow roll him in. He played a total of 16 minutes against the Sixers. 16 pretty solid minutes. I'd say it was a good performance for him on both sides of the ball. And then he just, like you said, Kyle, we have the back-to-back tomorrow against the Heat, Monday tonight, depending on when this podcast goes up. So they're going to rest him. It's smart that they're going to rest him as much as they do because he, of all the guys who are on the floor, is probably going to be the most competent offensively to start when it comes to navigating what everybody else is doing, because we're in this weird zone in between Dame Lillard having knowing what he does and trying to figure out what everybody else's spots that are Giannis having to play a lot more pick and roll, like being much more dependent on what Lillard does. Khris can just do his own thing because that's what he's been doing his entire career. So this is like peak Khris Middleton time. And he's still he's got the length and everything to be effective on defense. So I appreciate that they're going to slow roll, but the offense on nights like tonight, especially where Giannis has always kind of struggled against the DeAndre Hunters and Emeka Okongwus of the world. I think they've kind of always given him a little bit of fits and starts, and Khris has always benefited from that to kind of help bail us out. When Dame was having as poor of an offensive night as he was, having Khris out there, that's why you have him to be the third option to kind of help. If it's going to be a rock fight, Khris is like one of the best rock fighters ever. So they're slow rolling him. I don't think he's actually hurt or they're hiding anything. It's just that's going to be another fold to learning how to play as a team without Khris there for like every single night for heavy minutes, because Giannis and Dame played heavy minutes in the first game and they played like a good amount of minutes again in a laugher against the Hawks tonight. So TBD on Khris, where he's at.
Yeah, it kind of leads into what one of my two things that I was going to say is the wing depth is there that you can just slow roll Khris. We don't need Khris to be healthy in October, November. We need Khris to be healthy in April and May and hopefully June. That's when Khris Middleton has to be healthy. So, and the wing depth has showed Jay Crowder might not need to go to Fenerbahce. He maybe Barcelona. Maybe Barcelona is. We might be able to get him to Barcelona. That's a step up. That's improvement for him.
Baku is still beautiful this time of year. However, Jay doesn't need to visit just yet.
No. He can go to Barcelona. Like he could do that. He can go to Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. Like a rep. Like we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So good on him. Marjan, as we talked about, we've seen flashes. He is going to get that chance. Andre Jackson Jr. got his first NBA minutes. Didn't do anything particularly well offensively, but again, defensively and just the hustle, you could see it. Malik Beasley, Pat Connaughton, if they hit shots, great. If they don't, it is what it is. And I think that's going to be kind of the thing, is there's enough wing players where you don't need to have Khris come back. And I think part of that also is when you have Damian Lillard, it's great because Khris is your number 3 option. As opposed to last year, it's like, okay, if you don't have Drew, it's like, all right, Khris, you're gonna have to do something. Like Giannis, it's just Giannis and his merry bunch of bums at that point. Now we kind of need you to do something. And or even if Drew struggled, it's like, all right, Khris, like you're kind of our second option. Maybe we don't know if you're second or third option. We'll figure that out. But now this year, it's like, no, you're a third option. Rest. So I think that's a good thing for Milwaukee that Jay Crowder has looked better. MarJon has shown the defensive ability that we thought he would have from day one. So that's good. AJ Green scored 7 points in 6 minutes of play. Just saying that's something to keep an eye on as well. So wing rotation is, I think the wing rotation will allow Khris to be slow rolled in. And the other thing I had was defensively, you're going to have games like the Hawks game where they just look like a mess defensively, and that's okay. That's fine. Like there's going to be games where they look terrible, and there's going to be stretches against, like we saw against Philadelphia, where they are swarming and they are going to get everything. They have deflected passes, and it's going to cause other teams problems. It's going to be a steep learning curve, and especially when Giannis and Brook are not on the court, it's going to be bad, and that's okay. So that's kind of the two things I had.
Adrian Griffin really had the cojones to run a Dame, Malik Beasley, Bobby Portis trio out there and say, "Cook. Let's see how they cook."
Oh.
It's just
What?
the number of blown assignments in terms of guarding guys in the paint, insane tonight. Unbelievable.
You score 2,
is-
we're scoring 4. That was his mindset. And it didn't work.
Yeah, no. And then they scored 6 and we scored 1 was the our answer with everybody else. The way that I've described it in the group chat, I'm going to describe it in the intro to the Triple MR, the Monday Morning Media Roundup, and now on this podcast. Against the Hawks, the defense was aggressive enough to make us vulnerable to getting totally beat down, but not aggressive enough to force the other team to or prevent the other team from exploiting that. So when we were watching in the preseason, you were like, wow, they're really going all out and trapping guys against the sideline, like doubling guys. And whenever somebody helped, it was like effective. It's like, oh, you're like actually helping getting up on whoever the ball handler is. Tonight it was like super half-assed. The switches, they switched everything, and it was like, you don't have to switch everything. Like Malik Beasley should not be man guarding Clint Capella over and over again. I'm like, what the hell? Whose decision this? And you'll see if you don't even pay attention to the ball the next game, because I'm sure the Heat will tear us apart. A little sampler of the prediction, but a team that can effectively pass the ball or has that as a truism to their identity is going to have a field day, especially early on the season, because watch off ball the Bucks. The number of times guys totally lose their assignment and are looking around and pointing to other teammates like, okay, now you need to try and help me go over onto this guy who kind of ran through 2 off-ball screens and is free now. And we just saw it over and over again. The number of passes, ball movement, and just blown assignments over and over again. So this was the worst of all worlds, and guys tuckered themselves out, putting in a lot of effort on defense. Their defense sucks. And then it's like, now they're tired trying to carry themselves, shoot themselves back into a game. It's just a bad recipe. So I hope Griffin is able to inspire a little bit better execution, or it's just a matter of guys needing time to understand how to play together. But if they're not going balls to the wall the entire time, this is going to get torn up quick by a lot of teams. If your bet is other NBA offenses aren't going to be able to like find the easy pass, I got a bridge in Iowa to sell you, or a lake house in Iowa to sell you, or whatever the hell the phrase is. And it worked out okay against the Sixers, because at the end of the game, it just went to Embiid and Maxey. It's like, well, we can handle one-on-ones. Like, that's easy enough.
Right.
But if the other team is really willing to share the ball, you're in trouble. That was their early takeaway, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that all comes down to communication and effort. I don't know if it's yeah. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. I learned that in middle school basketball, and I was not very good at all. That's that's why I'm here and not on an NBA court. So, um, but but yeah, no, like you have to be able to communicate. And it can't be like, oh, he ran through 2 off-ball screens. Hey, go help me. It has to be the guy who's setting the off-ball screen. That person's man has to call out the screen in the first place.
Yep.
And then if the man who's for the screener's getting blocked off, you have to say that everyone has to communicate. That's essentially what I'm getting to the point to is that if this is the cards that Griffin wants to play, where it's like everyone let's hold hands and help each other on defense the entire night, then everyone has to hold hands and talk to each other like they want to be there and put forth that effort. It's a hard defense to play, especially.
Yep.
So it's going to be tough for them. I know, but maybe it'll probably just take some time. But hopefully, this is just a first 5 to 10 games thing and not a 82 game thing.
I also think when you're playing a guy like Trae Young who can pass the ball, it is going to be a lot harder for that to work. Now, if you're playing Boston or Miami, where the playmaking is not as strong, this could actually work because there were times, especially in the second half, where Milwaukee would do a trap right when the ball handler would cross half court. And that is something that could work, force them to make a large skip pass and you have a guy jump in the lane. I could see it working then. Or if you put the trap and you have people moving around quick enough. Yeah, but it's just not going to work against like a Trae Young, against a Luka Doncic. It's just not going to work against guys who can pass the ball really, really well. God forbid, I don't want to see that against Denver because that's just going to be disgusting if that happens. But when I'm thinking about like the other East contenders, like yeah, that can work against Miami. That can work against Boston. That's kind of, and hopefully, and then if I think of the West, it's like, yeah, it's not going to work against the Nuggets, but it could work against the Suns. It maybe could work against the Warriors, but it's just kind of like that thought process. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but it is very aggressive. And I don't want to say it's like Kid-esque because I feel like Kids was just more, it's not there yet, just because I feel like with Kid, it was just like, all right, just double and fly all over the place and it's all chaos. While with Griffin, I think there's supposed to be like coordinated, like effective rotation. It's just not there yet. It would also help if dudes would just not let guys just walk right past them.
Yeah. It is Kid-esque in as much as the principles are very similar, but the difference is when Kid was here, we were young and stupid, a bunch of 20-year-olds who had the energy to kind of do whatever. Now these are all 30-plus-year-old grown-ass men who are asked to like chase dudes around. The reason why that defense looks so good in the preseason is like, of course, 2 guys who are 22 years old are gonna like really thrive in this chaotic defense. So that's the question: is how much buy can we get, and also what are guys physically capable of? I was pointing it out in the preseason. If this is going to be the go-to, guys are going to be dead on their feet by January or February, and maybe that's the price you pay. You try and rack up wins, but then you get your ass handed to you by the Hawks. Like that's not part of the plan. So I don't want to raise an alarm. It's way too early. It's only the first 2 games of the season, but maybe potentially a slight mismatch between means and ends. The end product, we want to have a really aggressive defense. The means are a bunch of 33-plus-year-old men. It's like, okay, we'll see how this works. That's just something to wonder about.
Looking at the starting lineup, it's like, all right, you're asking like a mid-30s Brooke, mid to low 30s Khris and Dame. Yeah. Malik Beasley, who's not had the reputation of being good defensively, and Giannis, who isn't 30 but has played for like 12 years. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask, but oh well, it is what it is. So that is what we learned in the previous week. We are now going to have our other news segment, Buck the Hose. And we actually had someone comment, and it was very thankful for that. Thank you, Deadbird. I think it's Deadbird. I don't know. Deadbird asks on our posting on brewhoop.com, how many championships does Milwaukee have to win between now and the player option for Giannis to stay in Milwaukee? In what will definitely be a transition era. Given the cupboard will be bare at the time, will this team spend over the salary cap to keep fielding a winner or take a breather?
So we presume, I think what we can say, let's say 2028 is the target, because let's say we exercise it, let's just assume that 2028. If they win one more title, and really actually it might be 0, but it's more so how are they positioned at the time that might impact it more. Because if the Bucks don't make the Dame trade and we kind of just loaf around for another season, and if we don't make it, at that point Giannis is going to look around like, okay, what's going on? Whereas at that point, depending on what John Horst is able to do, maybe you reset it. So I would say 1 probably guarantees it, because then he has 2 titles. His legacy is like totally secure, and he's, again, seems very hyped about staying in Milwaukee. So I would guess 1 between now and then would get it done.
I think one would at least get it done. Part of me says I don't even think they have to be honest, just because it would depend on how they would get eliminated. You know, are they losing in the finals most of these years in 6-7 games where it's like, okay, you were that close? Maybe it's a little bit better. Or are you flaming out in first and second rounds and you're not even getting back to the finals, you know, stuff like that. I don't know. I would say 1 at least. I think the bigger question will be when you get to the closer to that 2028, when Brooke and Khris will for sure likely not be still on those contracts, and you're just with Giannis and Dame, and we don't know what the rest of the roster is going to look like because, let's face it, no one is safe. So I don't know, because, and that's where the questions of like, are you still going to have Marjan? Are you still going to have a guy like AJ Green, Marjan, Andre Jackson? Like, what are they going to be at that point? Because if they are solid starting role players, okay, then you can maybe figure things out, add 1 more guy later on. But if they're, I mean, who knows? I think that's the biggest question. So I would say 1 more, and it would probably have to be in the next 2-3 years, 2 years while you have Khris and Brooke.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. I would honestly, just knowing how Giannis is, it would probably just take 1 more title for him to stay. I think that's the biggest thing. Although it would be cool to see them get 2. I think that would just like permanently cement his legacy as probably the greatest Milwaukee Buck of all time. If heavily rivaling Kareem, I think that would vault him over, but it would be tough because the Bucks, I just pulled it up here, have basically 2 draft picks that they currently own, and that's a 2024 second round pick and a 2027 second round pick. So like, if Giannis decides to leave in that 2028 season, it's not good. I mean, they have the pick swap picks with Portland, so they will have those, but those aren't going to be good if the Bucks are good too. So, and if even if those picks are good, Portland's going to get them anyway if the Bucks start to fall off or whatever. So the Bucks are sitting in a very dangerous precipice where if they don't get something relatively soon, I'd say maybe by like 2026, they may have to start thinking about what direction they want to go to, and if keeping Giannis is the best thing long term for them, where if they trade him even before his player option, they could get a billion draft picks and just kind of try and reset the roster.
Yeah, because I actually thought about it, and 2026, yeah, Chris's contract, Bobby's contract, Pat Connaughton's contract will all be out by, at that point, the latest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of cap space you could open up, but obviously you still have Dame and Giannis's contracts, which are going to take up a large chunk of that cap. But depending on what the cap does, I know Van was saying at one point, like, oh, the cap might, increase because media deals and stuff like that. It's like, well, maybe. Let's just not hold on. We don't know what streaming and everything's gonna do to the salary cap and stuff, but it is gonna be interesting to see, can Milwaukee do it, like I said, in this basically 2 years where this is probably the window, because once you get to the end, like you said, Jackson, with what draft picks, and unless you can make trades and collect them, you're probably going to have to hope on, dude, you're going to just be fishing for vet minimum and mid-level exceptions and hoping that they pan out. And that's kind of a high gamble to take. And I just don't, I think at that point, if Giannis wins another one or two, honestly, he might just say, I don't need to go. Like, Giannis wouldn't surprise me if he wins another like 1 or 2 titles. By the time that contract goes, he's done. He's like, I'm retiring. Whatever. I'm in like the 30s. I'm good. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I love, Kyle, that AJ Green gets second billing as like the trio of young guys who could be.
Oh, he's fine
to help tide Giannis over into the next era. I hope to live long enough to see the training camp where AJ Green comes in and says, Giannis, I got it this year. Like, don't worry about it. You do. I want AJ Green to sit him down and say, I'm going to do what I do. You do what you do. And then we're just going to work it out. Like, he pulls the reverse Giannis. I think the other question too is like, okay, if they win one title, but it's at the end of his contract, I think, does that like also change the calculus where he's like, oh, well, like, even if the team's not going to be that good or the prospects aren't great, he's like, well, we won another title. This is still like technically competitive. And the other upside is to him signing this contract, I should say, is the fact that as years go by, we will get access to more draft picks. Like, yes, there's still going to be a while out, but as time moves forward, we are going to get occasional access. And we still, I assume, because of the Stepien rule, you can't get rid of 2 years in a row of first rounders. So they're not going to be great first rounders, but there's still like wiggle room. So it's not totally, we're probably going to immediately set them on fire when they become available, because that's what John Horst does. He does not want to draft people, which I respect the hell out of. But I have a little bit of confidence the fact that we have salary that's decent for trading. We'll keep getting more draft picks, and AJ Green's on the roster. All those things kind of come together to. I feel pretty good. If they win a title, he'll probably continue to stick around. I mean, although I should also say Jackson's point of like, is Giannis the kind of guy that you even want to sign to that next contract? Besides, like, we love the guy and we want him to retire a buck. It'd be like, how is his game gonna age? We have no clue. Mm-hmm. We can have serious questions about that, but that's a discussion for 2028, whatever the hell this podcast is called at that point.
The 6th iteration of whatever it is. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Dear Diaries Part 5, the new Deering.
Yeah, we're doing the prequels to Dear Diaries. Dear Diary, yeah, we'll just keep going.
Look, we're just not going to make it a sequel and have it just be terrible.
Attack of the Blood.
Rise of Prunty.
Some really fertile ground here. Yeah,
the kid strikes back.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly did not realize he was still at Dallas. I was like, wait, he's still there? I thought they fired him last year.
Oh, unfortunately not for them.
Give it another season. All right. That is what we have for Buck the Host. Again, thank you, Deadbird, for sending that over. If you want to roast us for anything we have said, if you think we are overreacting, underreacting, make sure to comment on the posting that will be on the Brew Hoop website. Otherwise, we can go over to the fun part, the part for the sickos, the part for the diehards. We're going to start a miscellaneous topics. I have rapid fire this week. Halloween is on Tuesday. Fun thing, it might snow in Wisconsin. I'm not looking forward to that, but that is not the question. I just have a couple more Halloween themed questions. So if you're handing out candy, or if you're getting, okay, no, I'm going to say if you're handing out candy, are you the person, because we all know the answer. If you're handing out candy, are you the kind that gets like the giant pack of like mini sizes of the candies, or are you the one that gets like the regular size or the king size bars?
Oh, I'm going mini all day. My budget don't go that long. Come on now. We're a 2-income household, but I got student loans to pay. So yeah, I'm going for the kids. They can take as many as they want, but I'm getting the minis for sure.
Yeah. I'd probably go like, this is a weird way to phrase it, like a Willy Wonka route where I get a whole bunch of minis, but then like have like 5 or 6 like big ones just to kind of like throw people off. It's like where if one person gets it, they're like, "Oh my god, go to this house! They have king size," and then the next person comes and they just have all these minis, or I give them raisins or something like that. So, but I would do a mix.
I think if I was smart and I knew, because our neighborhood it's like very high variable. Some years we get a lot of kids, some years we don't. We don't even bother anymore because we just go to my in-laws on the east side of Madison. I would go to Costco and buy like just a party pack. I would just buy that and just do that instead. So I would go regular, but I'm too lazy and I always forget at the last minute. So we end up doing minis. All right. Next one. Is there a costume that you just absolutely despise? Or is there a type of costume that you're just like, get the fuck out of here with this?
Man, that's a really good question.
Because I feel like we've done like costumes you enjoy. I want costumes we hate.
I think, man, I would say this is a stupid subcategory, and this is not necessarily a podcast for kids, but let's hope kids will listen. But like people who take characters or figures from whatever that are unsexy, and they're like, "Oh, I'm like sexy, whatever." Like character that totally there's just no. Like, I appreciate the effort, respect, but you don't need to turn like the Grinch like sexy Grinch. We don't need sexy Grinch. And I hate that I had to say that, but and that's maybe yeah. I might be straw manning the shit out of that argument, but I'm just, I'm fighting this scourge that may or may not exist of sexy Grinches around the world. So.
Yeah, no one wants to see like the puppet from Jigsaw with like big cleavage or whatever. Like, no one wants to see that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, Thank you, Jax. Thank you for another that I'm sure you've seen a lot of examples of that specific.
Like being like first year out of college and like seeing all of my friends are like still at college and like seeing all the Halloween parties this past weekend. There's a part of me that like, yeah, I miss it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I don't have to see any of those costumes like in person anymore. But
Jackson, do you have a more sane answer than mine?
But your answer isn't wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
I have like a twofer. Mine is kind of bouncing off of yours, and it's like just because it's cliche, like the sexy nurse outfit. It's just so cliche. Like put a little bit more effort into it, like not to the extreme where we're seeing like sexy Grinch, but like don't go like super basic or whatever. But the other one that I was thinking of, and this is just, it's like the people who go like hyper realistic and have like these super detailed cosplays. And it's only because I'm jealous. Like if I see someone with like high tech Iron Man armor or like a like beautifully done like Anakin Skywalker cosplay, I'm going to be mad because I'm like, I want that to be me. Like, this isn't fair. Like, I'm literally dressing up like I have a brown leather jacket. I'm gonna dress up as Indiana Jones, but I'm not gonna have a whip or like the brown fedora. I'm just gonna use whatever I got. So it's like I want that stuff, but it's expensive, and I want to look like that, but it's expensive. So I don't see that a lot, but just like perusing like Twitter or whatever, or like Instagram, and seeing those people, I'm like, what's your address? I need some of this stuff.
Yeah. No, that is a good one. I also get jealous of that, and that's I think that's partially why I like hate Halloween. Sometimes like I can't think of a good enough costume. Like I thought we have a cow suit. I'm just wearing that on Tuesday.
You don't want to. You want to show up to the party where you wore like a robe and you have like some BS lightsaber and you're like, oh, I'm like a Jedi. And then the dude strolls in decked out like Darth Vader with the voice modulator and everything. You're like, God damn it. You're like,
I like.
it's just tough.
I went to a Comic-Con in August, and there's this guy in full like Darth Maul makeup and everything.
Yeah.
It was
that.
nuts.
Yeah. When they do it right, it's awesome. But yes, you do feel super inferior. Like, man,
Yes,
there's levels to this game.
Yeah, mine's pretty simple. If you have to explain very detailed what it is, don't do it.
Do not do an idea. Don't be an idea.
Yeah, like if it's something that I don't know because I'm not caught up in pop culture, fine. If you say, "Oh, I'm this from this," okay, cool. I don't know what that means, but got it. But if you have to like explain it like more than 2 sentences, no. I hate those. Like you overthought it. Speaking of Halloween parties and people maybe going slutty Grinch, are you a fan of Halloween parties? Yay or nay?
No, this is going to be the stupidest episode of Dear Diaries ever, and we're 2 episodes in. This is our Atlanta Hawks, Milwaukee Bucks performance of the Dear Diary.
Yep.
Look, I was coming up with rapid fire. I was like, what? And this is the problem when we've done this for so long. I was like, I feel like I've asked every single typical one.
Yeah. I am not into Halloween parties, but I've never really been into Halloween. I wasn't as a kid. My parents would only let me get like the Kmart outfit, which is fine. Like, I don't begrudge my parents that, but it was just not something that was really big in our household. So I'm not huge into it. I don't like, as an adult, having to put in all the effort. I'd rather just dress nicely and go over to a friend's house rather than having to dress as a vampire and go over to a friend's house. So I say no for me personally.
I would personally say, I think I like the idea of like Halloween parties. I think maybe as I get older and I get different friends, but college Halloween parties sucked. Like, as a person who like doesn't drink, especially, like, it sucks. Just like everyone's doing their thing and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to be here. Like, so yeah, it's. I think maybe like for one of the ones down the line where it's like maybe a little bit more low key and all that kind of stuff, maybe I'll like them. But at least the college ones, I'm good with those. I'm good not going to those.
I was the opposite. I loved it in college. And then I graduated. I was like, this sucks. And now that I'm a parent, it's like I see the kids do it, and I was like, okay, I'm back in. I think being a parent has allowed me to like let the kids do whatever they want. And it's like also added cuteness. So I'm back in on Halloween parties. But after I graduated, I was no. Simple one. Do we like pumpkin? Is like the flavor pumpkin? Yes or no?
No.
Depends on what it's in. Like pumpkin pie, I am all here for pumpkin pie. That is delicious. Like having that like after Thanksgiving, after you've already had like 10,000 pounds of food, is just so worth it. Like a little like whipped cream topping on top. Like sign me up for some of that. Anything else, probably not. But pumpkin pie can stay forever.
I only asked that because I made pumpkin French toast, and I was pretty happy with it. All right. Ooh. Last one. Which book would survive the longest in a zombie apocalypse?
Man. I think you had some bangers this week, Kyle. Some good questions this week.
I'm going to go with Thanasis. I think he's got that dog in him where he would literally just try and fight off everyone. Yeah, I think he just has that, like, I'm gonna like he's gonna be the guy like in every zombie apocalypse movie who's gonna have like the outrageous like weapons and is like fully kitted out or whatever. Like he's gonna have like this stupid like plasma like grenade launcher and like stuff like that. So I think he would probably be my bet.
Man, it's tough because the tall guys, I mean, that's just asking for trouble. You're very spottable from distance. I'm trying to think who's fastest. You know what? I'm going to say Dame because Dame is very low key. He wouldn't make a lot of noise out and about, and he'd be able to navigate crowds of zombies. It's not so much about confronting the zombies in my mind. It's, can you just lay low? Don't let the zombies know you're there. That's my thing. So I think Dame would be most likely to survive the zombie apocalypse.
That's a good one. I was gonna say Cameron Payne, mainly because of like the simple, low key. He's thin enough. He's skinny and small. Like he can get through.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, good. I was gonna say if someone says Jay Crowder or Marjan, I might have had to end the show. So
Yeah, there's
I'm
a lot of guys
surprised-
they're a little too loud for it.
I was gonna say I was surprised that no one brought up the leader of the zombie apocalypse and AJ Green. I'm surprised no one brought up his potential leadership.
you know, I sometimes the best leader is going to sacrifice himself, and it is what it is for the
Yeah,
greater good.
Kyle would have said AJ Green, but his opinion's too high of him to say that. He understands the sacrifice that AJ would make for
Exactly.
the squad.
He knew his role. He knew his time was coming.
Oh my
All
gosh.
right. That is it for the rapid fire Halloween edition. We don't have a film, we don't have an ink, no ink review, but Jackson, we're gonna let you have your own segment, and it's gonna be called Jackson's Build. So you want to explain what it is and take it away.
Yeah, so I have recently gotten back into Lego, I would say probably since last Christmas. I realized how much of a relaxing hobby it can be and just how much fun it is. And obviously, as a big Star Wars fan, it helps that there's a lot of sets, whether they're in production right now or they're not. So the idea behind Jackson's Builds is to like update you all on like some of the current stuff I'm building or will hope to build. And if I don't have either of those, maybe I'll do like a video game review. I'm chomping at the bit to get Spider-Man 2 at some point. So, about that. So without further ado, I have a little appetizer for the one before I show you the big one that I finished like a week or two ago. So we got here just a little like gun, I guess, with the 501st Clone Trooper Legion. Just built that last night. It's just a smaller set. It's like 100 pieces. Comes with 4 clones. That's really what you're buying it for. It was a lot of fun. Had my mom use it for target practice on my brother while he was trying to grade papers for his job. So that was fun. So a lot of fun with that. But the big one that I finished the other day was this one. This is, I guess, the best way to describe it is Ahsoka's Jedi ship from the Ahsoka show. It comes with Sabine, it comes with Huyang, it comes with Ahsoka, and it comes with Marok, aka the next Boba Fett, who fans are going to hope that he gets resurrected because he looks cool and thought was bigger than what he actually is. But yeah, that one I think was around like 700, 800 pieces. Ton of fun to build. The wings actually like go all the way around. They spin around this entire like base here, so that's kind of fun to go with. So yeah, that's what I got so far. And then probably tomorrow I will be building a TIE bomber. Part of the reason I got it was because simply for the fact it comes with the Darth Vader minifigure. So if you want a cheaper alternative for that, just buy the Darth Vader mech. Yes, that's actually a thing. It just comes like in a big like mech suit, and he comes with the minifigure. But I would personally get the TIE bomber. It's a lot of fun. It actually like drops bombs and stuff like that. So it'll be fun to build, fun to maybe play with some point down the line. Obviously, it probably won't happen for decades, but I'd love to get the Venator that they just came out with. It's $650, so that will never be happening with my own money. But yeah, it's awesome. I think it's like over like 2 feet long, or it's ridiculously big. I think it's over 10,000 pieces. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and those are my builds.
All right.
Oh, that's really cool. How detailed are the instructions that they give? Because it's been a very long time since I purchased a Lego set myself to like put together. So like nowadays, because they've come a long ways from even like 10 years ago or whatever, how detailed are the instructions they give you?
They're pretty good. Like they'll have like if you need to like rotate something, they'll have like a sphere with like arrows around it. They won't necessarily tell you which way to rotate it, but most of the time it's fairly obvious how you have to rotate it to attach pieces, and it literally goes through it step by step of like, okay, here are the pieces you need, here's how you attach them. Like they'll have arrows on like the holes, and most of the time, again, at least for how my brain works, it's very obvious like sometimes where things need to go. And then they have like these little like tools, so like if you mess up, you don't have to like rip and pry and then fling a Lego like halfway across the room. You can just kind of just easily jimmy it open and kind of fix it from there. So it's been a lot of fun. Some of the other ones I have is an Lego X-wing and then Obi-Wan Starfighter from Episode 2. So slowly building the collection. Holidays are coming up, so hopefully getting some more.
Very cool.
All right.
And the cool part about Star Wars too is so much of the machinery and everything. So many of the ships are so iconic. Like there's all the like the Star Destroyers are just, there's something so evocative about it, and it lends
Well, I
itself
was gonna say,
so
even
well
Ahsoka's
to-
ship, it's like I saw it, I was like, I know exactly where that's from because I saw the show. And it's like, yes, you could like, it is one of those where if you see it, then it's like you know exactly what it is.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they actually stopped making the Star Destroyer a while back. So, so if you want to get it, it's available at retailers for a cool $1,000. Or if you want to get the Death Star, so yeah, the only big sets they have left besides the Venator is a big Millennium Falcon. I think that's almost like 2 feet long. It's like $850, and then there's an AT-AT Walker that's pretty big. That's a 2 feet high, I think, and that's like another $850. So want to go big, they're there, but I don't know how realistic that is.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I saw the contemplating.
It was one of those. How much trouble would I be in if I bought it? It'd be very.
Yeah.
And then I would have to make sure that the kids didn't touch it because I would absolutely not let that happen. Then it's like, that's not even worth it then.
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, that was a good one. And I'm excited to see what more Star Wars things you can come up with. I wonder, do you also like have other like the Harry Potter set or like an Avengers set, or is it mainly just Star Wars that you're working on right now?
I did buy my mom a Dobby one to put together. That's the first one we have of that. Most of the time my mom has built like the plant and botanical ones. She just got a bonsai tree today. So we'll probably start also building the Harry Potter collection a little bit. Maybe we'll get the Hogwarts. Maybe we'll get the Hogwarts train. Not entirely sure yet.
Gotcha. Awesome. Cool. That is pretty good. I have a film review. The movie Nope. Anyone that knows about it, Jordan Peele's movie, came out back in 2022, I believe. Yeah, it was 2022, which it feels like it came out a long time ago. As I mentioned last week, I'm not a gory, like slasher kind of scary movie kind of person, but I will do thrillers, and this was definitely a what the is going on. It was a science fiction horror movie. For those that don't know, it's basically like these UFOs show up at this place, and Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, and Steve Wynn are the main characters, and they're pretty much having to navigate through all that. It kind of had, and obviously it was a Jordan Peele directed movie. It's definitely a layered interpretation of it. You know, it's not just whatever is there. It's kind of like there's a theme for it. So part of it could be make like the inability to not look at a disaster that takes place. Like you have to like see it. It's the grim and like bleak outlook on life. There's the exploitation is probably the biggest theme of it, but it was really good. I don't think it was as good as Get Up or Get Out. I don't think it was as good as that, but I haven't seen Us, which I know is Jordan Peele's other kind of scary, like thriller type of movie. But this was a good one. I mean, it was definitely like a fun watch. Again, it's not as, I don't think it's as scary, just more like weird. I think that would be like the best way to describe it. It's just more like a weird kind of horror, not necessarily like you'll jump out of your seat kind of thing. So I don't know what it was on. I watched it like I think it was on Hulu at one point, but I don't think it's there anymore. This was like one of those where it's like, what have I watched? It's in like the last couple months when we weren't recording. This was one of them. But no, I think it was really good. I recommend it. I give it a 7 out of 10.
Would you say this movie like leans into the absurd? I'm looking at a couple of stills from it, and just like the random elements that are thrown in, like oh, wacky inflatable tube men as guy rides horse with UFO
Yes.
behind him. Okay, yeah,
It is very much a what the F is going on, and
no.
and it's more, again, it's more of the, there's definitely another like there's a layer to it. There's another meaning to it, not just like what you see. And I think that part, like the wacky waving two men and the horses and paparazzi and stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, there's a deeper meaning to it.
Okay, so it's not absurd for the sake of being absurd. It's absurd in elements to try and underpin the point. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, interesting. It's good to know that it's not scary because I just knew Jordan Peele Get Out, and I know that was like sort of a horror-y movie, and as I discussed last week, I'm not into horror, so it's interesting that this one's less that. So I might have to give it a try.
At least in my opinion, I didn't think it was like as horror films. It's more just like, it's more like the creepy kind of way.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
Cool.
Yeah, and I did see Us a few years ago. I would say it's probably the closest to a slasher for Jordan Peele. It's definitely a little bit more gory, but there's still some of those like freak out moments and kind of some of that stuff you've been talking about with Nope, where it's just like it's just creepy.
yeah.
And the ending is really good too. So would recommend that. But yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever. I saw the trailer for Us and I was like, nope, can't do it. Great cast, looks like a great movie. I can't do it. It's just not me. But we are going to end it with our prediction. So by the time you're listening to this, the Bucks will host the Miami Heat tonight, Monday. Then they go to Toronto on Wednesday, and then they come back to Milwaukee to host the New York Knicks. So, Riley, what is your prediction on the record for this week?
I think we'll lose against the Heat. Giannis is going to try and play out of his mind, and when Giannis plays out of his mind, he plays poorly as like a revenge game. I think he'll play bad. So we'll lose that, but we will beat the Raptors, and the Knicks will go 2-1 this week.
Jackson?
I'm gonna say that I think we'll also go 2-1, but I'm gonna reverse it. I think they'll beat Miami. I think with Khris Middleton coming back, I think they're gonna want to get their sour taste of this game out of their mouth. And the Knicks, or no, I was thinking the other way. I mean, like the Heat, yeah, they still got Jimmy Butler, they got Bam, but I think the Bucks are already a better team in that sense. And then I think the Raptors are Canada's answer to the Bulls, where like they're just incredibly mid. Like, if any of you watched that Bulls and Raptors game, that is like teams just like not wanting to win the game at all. Like the Bulls went on like a 40-8 run at some point, and then the Raptors went on like a 40-12 run in the second half. Like, thank God for Alex Caruso, I guess, but they're bad. And I'm also saying that because I'm covering that game, so I want them to win so I can write nice things. And then I think maybe just after traveling back, I know the Knicks have Julius Randle. That usually is a -15 for every night for them, especially how he played against the Pelicans. But I think when you're going up against those caliber teams, I think sometimes you get a clunker, and who knows what Khris Middleton's availability is going to be like throughout the week and how well he's going to play. I think this is going to be like the week of Khris Middleton. I think if you're going to watch anybody this week outside of Giannis and Dame all the time because they're amazing, I think this is the week to watch Khris Middleton, because this is the first like stretch run of the season where we're getting at least like three games in a week.
I'm also going to say 2-1. The reason why I'm picking they lose the next game, because apparently that one is the play-in tournament, the in-season tournament one.
It's already here. Are you serious?
Yes, the first game. This will be the first group play, but then they don't have another one for like 2 weeks. But yes, Friday is the first in-season tournament, so I think they're going to lose it because I don't think they're going to take it seriously.
So strange.
Yep.
So strange.
I don't understand this concept. Why not just do it like at the same time? But whatever.
Yeah, like it doesn't make sense because then they don't play it until the 17th against Charlotte. But then after they have like 3 of them in like a 10-day span.
Yeah.
Where they play Washington and Miami, and then it's the in-season tournament after they play the Hawks again. So I'm excited just to see how it turns out, but I don't understand how this is going to work yet until it actually happens. The commercial was cool with DeRozan and some of those guys, but outside of that,
I just don't know what the goal of this tournament is supposed to accomplish. Like, what is the purpose of like what's the incentive to actually try? And that's the part where it just like I don't understand that aspect.
Question mark?
Yeah,
Money?
money.
Like, yeah, money. Like these players need more of it. I feel like this is gonna be one of those where they'll raise the stakes. It's gonna be like the All-Star game where they'll change formats and change things to try and make it work. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, oh yeah, the winner of the tournament gets like a first round bye or something like that. I could see that happening.
I want to give a shout out to commenter Canyon, who said all they have to do is win the NBA Cup. Nothing else matters for the Bucks. That's the right mindset. Let's go on. Let's win. Let's be the first winner. Shout out to Canyon. Right on the money, 100%.
Would be the greatest. They would be the greatest in-season tournament team of all time.
They would be the in-season tournament team of all time.
But yeah, I'll say 2-1 just because I don't think they'll take that in-season tournament game seriously. So, yeah, no, that is everything that we have for this episode. So thank you again for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. If for some reason you thought you lost our feed when we went from Brew Hoop over to Dear Diaries, do not worry, but give us 5 stars. If you give us 4 stars, I'll be very sad, and you better give a valid reason as to why. Otherwise, make sure to check us out at brewhoop.com. We'll have all of the game coverage and everything else that you will need for this upcoming Bucks week, and we will talk to you later.